Listen, chaos, evil, destruction. What's going on in the world today? And guess what? It's always been going on in the world. It's never subsided. And you know, one thing about our nation, it's easy sometimes to really be concerned about the issues that other folks are facing. But they give it like a week or two or a month or 3 months later, we just back into the regular thing, our lives, you know. Is it March Madness? Or Christmas is around the corner, or, you know, am I going to get my raise? And we just forget about everybody else. That's a reality. You know? But I don't think we should. I think we, you know, recently, I think now with the internet and 24-hour news cycle, and the politics, the political parties and leaders, you know, jockeying for a position which will be lucrative to them, it seems. We are informed more and more of what's going on in the world today. And see, as black people in this nation, because this is the urban program, listen, what's going on in this world affects us more than anyone else, and maybe it not necessarily affects us, but is simply a mirror image of what we've been going through ourselves for these past 400 years. And so we look at a situation, we look at international situations, and we see things just a little bit different than people of European descent, namely white folks in this nation and across the globe, but in this nation in particular for this conversation. And so when we see what's going on with the Palestinians right now, being beat down by Israel, and then we recognize, see what a lot of folks don't recognize, especially religious people, most people, because we don't really know much about anything. We don't know much about what historically what's been going on in this planet. But those people that have created what they call the nation of Israel were European white descendants of converts to Judaism. In other words, they weren't the Jews of the Bible, because the Jews of the Bible were black folks, you know, whatever you want to call it. Now, I'm not one of these Hebrew Israelites ranting and raving and yelling and screaming. I'm just saying this is a historical fact, okay? So to me, it's not all that big a deal to embrace being a Jew, you know. So the black Hebrews, you know, no, we're Jews, and these white guys, we're Jews. And to me, it's not that big a deal being a Jew. What's the point? What's that mean, you know? But just to be clear, these people were transplanted from Europe after World War II, after their heinous treatment by the Nazis, and planted into a land that was not their own, and then subjugated the people whose land that it was into an apartheid, like what's been called by some an open-air prison for the past 70 plus years. That's what's been going on. And so as black people, and you know who else is supporting the Palestinians' cause? The Native Americans, okay? Because what Israel has done to the Native Americans is what was done to the Palestinians is what the white Europeans did to the Native Americans here, okay? And you know, you wonder why a lot of the European leaders, a lot of the white European leaders, and even Joe Biden, you know, and the Republican Party. So this is not political. It's just white. It's more of a genetic skin color issue. Okay. Why aren't these leaders saying anything? You know, this seems to be the one place where the Democratic president and the Republicans seem to be on the same page in support of Israel, but it's not the Israel of the Bible, it's support of these white Europeans that were transplanted onto the land of these folks who they're having conflict with, who they're mistreating. And that's an issue. See, as black people, we could identify. Even with like back Saddam Hussein, as black people, we could identify that there were no weapons of mass destruction. I knew it then. To be accused of something that's not true and then being punished for what you were accused of, Come on, that's out of the playbook. We know this as black people in America. We know that. We knew Saddam didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. Out there dragging Muammar Gaddafi around, killing him. Yeah, these were Negroes. Libya, that's Northern Africa, by the way, for you guys that don't know. This is what you got. So this is absolutely nothing new. We knew Saddam didn't have weapons of mass destruction. We go in there, cause all that damage, and then hang them. That's kind of a familiar sight. Lynching, you know, we seen a lot of that too. So as black people, what we see going on in this world today is from a black perspective. It's from a perspective of experience. We know, okay? We know why the American president isn't condemning those people. Because he's educated. He knows our history. A lot of these guys, even that Florida governor down there, he could shut down, you know, ban some books and not tell history, but he's educated. He knows what happened. But he understands the constituents and the people are not really well read. And so they could say anything they want. The people are going to buy it, hook, line, and sinker, but not black folks. We know better. Most of us do. Most of us should. Those of us that don't know better simply don't know better. You know, speaking of banning of books, you know, when you're talking, you know, in that Florida issue about banning books and not teaching, you know, critical race theory and not teaching true history and trying to paint the picture like slaves just had a job, had job security or whatever, you know. And a lot of black folks are up in arms about that. I don't see why. Your kids should know because of what you taught them. My daughter came home in the 2nd grade from St. Christopher, a private school in Vandalia, Ohio, telling me that there weren't any such thing as Indians anymore. I mean, what? 2nd grade, I took her right to the internet. Let's look up some reservations. There are Indians here, okay? They're all over the place. You just don't see them because of the oppression of this nation. And before she left that 2nd grade, she knew who Stokely Carmichael was, Angela Davis, Eldridge Cleaver, Huey P. Newton, the Black Panthers for self-defense. The list goes on, man. And today, you know, so I ended up taking her out of that school, put her in a better private school from the 3rd grade up to graduation at the Miami Valley School in Dayton, one of the best schools in the region. And she ended up creating a black affinity group in that school because there was a need for one. And through her program and the head of the school and the interaction, see, my daughter put together not only the students in this organization, but also the parents. And initially it was in the time of COVID, so we were doing Zoom meetings. And the head of the school wanted to know what was going on, white lady, so she came into 1 or 2 of our Zoom meetings. My daughter talked to her and impressed upon her, and she created this affinity group. And when she left as a senior, she left it in the hands of a Nigerian girl. We need to be teaching our own kids. And so to me, it's almost a condemnation to black folks if you were ever relying on the school system to teach your kids. Man, I came up, man, when I was a young person, 12, 13 years old, I despised Martin Luther King Jr. because he'd just take a punch and not fight back. And as 13 and 14, 15 years old, I had Huey P. Newton on my walls. I had Angela Davis on my wall. I had quotes from George Jackson from Soledad Prison. This is who I was. I read Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver when I was 13. One of the chapters, the allegory of the black eunuch. Man, I went on Amazon the other day or audible.com, which I have like 600 books I've done over the past 20 years. I tried to find Soul on Ice. They're not even offering it, okay? Find it somewhere. Read. I mean, it's kind of crazy, kind of exaggerated sometimes, but you can get the feel in the heart, you know, of the black man from that time. I remember in the 8th grade, I was wearing a black beret. You know, I was a little bit younger than the Black Panthers, so I was on the heels of that. But I was wearing a black jacket, black beret, white turtleneck, and shades to school, switchblade in my pocket. Because I knew who I identified with. Because I knew my history. All these pictures we see lately over the past couple of years posted on the internet by black folks about these lynchings and that lynchings and this murder and that murder, burning that black man and lynching those black women. And I seen all those pictures when I was 13 in the books they were placed in. So I've always been aware. We need to be teaching our kids. My son was in about the 4th or 5th grade at East Dayton Christian. And I was teaching him about the black experience and all these black leaders that I came up with. And my family was kind of irritated with me saying, you're going to get him to grow up to hate white people. Well, guess what? He doesn't hate white people, and neither does my daughter. But they know who they are. They know what's going on in this nation. They know that the Alamo, remember the Alamo? Davy Crockett, Sam Houston, all Jim Boy and all them guys. That was a criminal organization that was attempting to have slaves on Mexican soil after Mexicans had outlawed slavery. And Santa Anna was the hero. The defenders of the Alamo were criminals. Were we taught that? No, you cannot allow your children to me, them banning the teachings of history, that's a blessing, because the history they were teaching us wasn't true history. Not at all. So I'm just sharing today that we need to see what's going on. We do, kind of. We get a sense as black people, what's going on in persecutions, what's right and what's wrong. Even with the Ukraine issue, when Russia went into Ukraine. I'm like, I feel bad for anybody that's suffering. But the reality is that, shoot, man, and I posted back then when we were beginning to feel so sorry and heartfelt for Ukraine, I was posting pictures. Why aren't we feeling sorry for the Palestinians? It's on my Facebook. Back then, day one. Why aren't we feeling sorry for the Iraqi kids, for the Iranian kids? Why? Because they're a little bit darker skinned than the blue-eyed Ukrainians. That's the reason. And let me show you how treacherous, I don't know. This is not where I plan on going. But it's from a black perspective, from a black man's perspective who's well-read, who knows what's going on in the world, whose desire, I've always loved history, I've always wanted to know. So Ukraine, what's been going on over there? Now, I look at the Ukraine, this is kind of abstract. I look at the Ukraine, the intention behind the Ukraine, kind of like look at the intention behind for black people in this nation. I mean, emancipation was in 1865. 1865. Come on now, it's getting ready to be 2024. That's a lot of years, right? Why is there even a scent of racism or negativity toward black people in this nation when there was freedom 160 some years ago? Because the intention has never been there. The agenda was for something else. Okay. Keep that on the shelf. Now look at Ukraine over there. Now given the strength of our nation and the accuracy of our weapons, especially fighting, it might be hard to fight people who are dug down, 200 feet underneath the ground in a bunker, or Vietnamese the same way, underground little cities and all. But come on, Russians are the type of warfare that our weapons were built for. Okay, traditional white folks fighting. We're the new British, right? So we could have ended that situation in Ukraine early on. And if we didn't want to get our hands dirty, we could have given look, we were given, this is no joke. We were given the Ukrainians, initially, when Putin first entered Ukraine back then, we were giving them revolvers, like 6-shooters, and rifles. I'm sure they were going into we gotta get rid of these, I don't know, sort of like those Obama phones, right? Yeah, they weren't smartphones. They were them Captain Kirk kind of phones, right? But, and I remember when I was in the military back in the 70s, for a time I was a cop, we had what they call those things, the revolvers, 6-shooters, revolvers. And now, of course, they got like 9mm, the police now. So what do you think they did with all those revolvers? They gave them to the Ukrainians. I'm just saying that stuff in Ukraine could have been over in a month. But the intention of this nation, we didn't want it over in a month. We knew that the longer it took Russia to win, or the longer it took Russia to lose, the weaker Russia was going to be. And you can go back to my Facebook, back when I said this when it started, that we didn't want Ukraine to win quick. We needed that thing stretched out as long as possible, because the longer it stretched out, Putin was going to lose his popularity, the people were going to revolt, and Russia was going to be extremely weakened. I posted this a couple of years ago on Facebook. It's there now. And that's what we see. And you know, I don't want to take total credit for it, because that's right out of The Art of War, Sun Tzu, which I'm a student of. I've studied for like 40 years. I'm a student of Sun Tzu. It's like, he talks about long campaigns don't have long campaigns that are taxing the people, because the people are going to get tired of it. So look, there's intention behind not allowing people to be as well as you could help them become well, because it's serving your purpose. Black people in America, it has served our purpose. And what's funny is that the nation, because we're just talking about primarily America right now, has taken people, whites and blacks, and pitted them against each other. I think it was Ronald Reagan that we began talking about the welfare queen. And then we begin to picture the welfare queen of this black woman that's on welfare. And not even considering, or having mentioned that most of the people on welfare in this nation are white people. And I'm not even talking about Medicaid and all that stuff, Social Security. I'm talking about actual welfare, sustaining people who are not old on government money. They're white folks that are eating up all our money. I was talking to this one guy, and he, well, you know, per capita, the percent, we're not talking about percentage, we're talking about most people who are taking most of my tax dollars. And that's simply a reality. And so the government does a lot of things, and I'm not anti-government, I love this nation. I'm a veteran. Tomorrow's Veterans Day, to date this program. But to recognize, I'm just trying to take the heat off of black people, because folks just seem to be trying to heap that heat on black people without even a reality of most white people are the ones who are taking up our welfare dollars. And then even looking at, remember the Obama phones? I was a mailman in the inner city when those came out. So people were, where's my Obama phone? I was living on Obama phones, free phones to all those people on welfare. People were really getting mad. That's why they call them Obama phones. Because they were picturing black people were getting all these phones. But more white people got Obama phones than black people. But even not even that. See, black people need to stop. White people and black people need to recognize, if you're not wealthy, we're all on the same team. Because the reality is, they were pitting black folks against white folks with those Obama phones. More white folks were on those phones. But what were they doing with those free phones? They recognized that they had to get rid of these old free phones. Some companies cut a deal with the government, and they got paid for unloading all these obsolete phones on all these poor people nationwide, and the government paid them for it. It was a deal between the phone companies and the government. So while we're all looking at all these poor people that are getting free phones, that's not fair. The reality was the government had cut a deal with these phone companies where they could sell these obsolete phones. The government would pay them. They would have taken a big loss. They would have never got rid of those phones. And as well, so now you have phone service that has to be paid for. I mean, so that whatever company's tied into that. I mean, so you have big business that are getting paid off those phones. Then you look at the welfare system. You know, forget the fact that more white people are on welfare. We want to be mad because people should be working. They're using our tax dollars. Really? Man, look who's getting paid off the welfare system. Come on now. First, it's a pretty large, you're talking about welfare offices in every city, in every state in the United States. How many people are being actually employed at the welfare office nationwide? millions of people, okay? So then you look at the paper companies who are supplying the paper to all those welfare offices all over this nation. Look at the pen companies. Look at the computer providers. Look at the internet providers. Man, look at the water cooler providers. Look at the people, the construction people, the people that are maintaining those buildings. Look how many people are getting paid by the welfare system, okay? So it's not, our country is not in the habit of giving people that have nothing if there's nothing for the government to gain. I mean, if this was not the case, we wouldn't have all these homeless people everywhere. Man, I went to D.C. when we were looking for a HBCU for my daughter a couple years ago, and I couldn't believe the homeless people in D.C. Man, they were camping. Man, me and my daughter were having breakfast at this one little shop. The presidential motorcade came by. The presidential motorcade drives by the tents and homeless people every day. All those people in D.C. that we're looking at arguing with each other about this and that, arguing that the American people want this or the American people want that. Every one of those folks arguing from whichever side drive by these tons of homeless folks every day on their way to work. Do they really care about those people? I look at the politicians sometimes like preachers that end up after that money. That I believe that when they first started, they probably had the righteous intention. They weren't thinking about how much money they could make. They were just trying to go somewhere to tell somebody about Jesus. But then they got the first, they get little offerings here, little offerings here, and then they got $1,000. They got $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $80,000. There comes a point where they cross the line from, this is just my heart, I want to help people, to how much can I make, okay? And I'm not even faulting them, because, I'm not in that position, so I can't say, that I wouldn't be that as well, but that's what we see. And, okay, so we see all that money that we are blessing companies with, who are supplying all of the welfare offices in this nation. We are recognizing that all those Obama phones, whatever company unloaded those, the government paid them a hefty sum. It wasn't about the people. It was about cutting a sweet deal with this company that was able to unload these obsolete phones that they would never have unloaded before. It's about the service providers. It's the welfare offices, the service providers of every kind of service and the employment that they're making. Let me take a little step further. Stimulus checks. What do you think about those? Depends on which president gives them out, which people are going to be complaining. If the president gives out the stimulus checks, the Republicans are going to be complaining. If the Republican gives out the stimulus checks, the Democrats are going to. Well, let me tell you what. They're all educated folks up there. Most of them, maybe not Lauren Boebert. A lot of them have snuck through the cracks, But most of those politicians are educated. And I got educated later in life. I earned my MBA from the age 50 to 60, okay? So in that MBA studies, there were economics courses, right? And what I learned in economics is that when they give these stimulus checks to the American people, it's expected that all that money is going to purchase something. They're not expecting people to save those stimulus checks. And so so all that money right back into the economy is going to boost the economy. It's like, how the doctors do to wake up the heart. All that money infused back into the economy grows the economy. Guess what? Welfare dollars. Same thing, man. We're complaining about so many people on welfare taking all that money, they're not working. Hey, look, the welfare system has been going on forever. Why? Not for the sake of those poor people. The reality is that the government knows, because we're saying, if they don't do this, we're trying something for a while, if they didn't do this, they'd be cut off, they'd be cut off, they'd be cut off. Well, the government knows that every dollar that they give these folks on welfare, 95% of it is going to be fused right back into the economy. Welfare people are keeping our economy afloat because they're spending that money. I mean, it's the whole trick. Your income tax refund, most people, they know you're going to spend it. It's all, so they're giving it to you just for you to infuse into the economy. All this stuff, man. This is economics. So recognize nobody's doing anything for just for the goodness of their hearts. Because if they were, there wouldn't be any homeless people in this nation. That's simply a reality, man. And so we need, as poor people, or just not wealthy people, not 1 or 3% people, to stop hating on each other, to recognize that they're just using us to keep us occupied, fighting each other, because they know we're not going to be thinking. You know, one group is going to be watching one news station, another group is going to be watching the other news station, and never the twain shall meet. And that's just what they need. Because if they ever sit back and tell you the truth like what I just told you today, I believe folks would have a very different opinion on what's going on, you know, in our nation. So how do we become well with all this that's going on? Because, man, it's kind of crazy. And you can get caught up in the mess and just not survive. See, you can get caught up in the world that they've created and believe this is your limitation. It's almost like the Truman Show. Remember that? Where the guy thought he was just living a life and realized he was in an environment that was totally created, you know, by this television producer. You know, that's how most of our lives can be, but it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to recognize, first of all, what I've been sharing with you. Recognize that you don't have any enemies, really. You have people that are trying to control the situation, and you have people that are being used against you, you being used against them. Don't do that. Don't buy into it, okay? Just recognize that. You can be well, but there's going to be some things you're going to have to do. When you see evil, don't be a part of it. We see that stuff going on in the Middle East and Gaza. Come on now. It doesn't matter what the politics are. It doesn't matter what the religion you think you belong to is. I mean, if you want to look at it from a religious perspective, just use this. So, good is God, evil is not. Okay? Now, when you got babies and people, men, women, old people, hospitals, you know, schools and everything, people dying by the thousands, you got to know that's not good. Okay? And so black people don't have this issue usually. We know this. So what I'm suggesting is when you see evil, don't be a part of it. Okay? Because what goes around does come around. And you're sanctioning something that is evil against people are dying, man, what goes around does seem to come around, okay? Or how's the religious, you reap what you sow, right? Or the Hindu karma, right? Everybody seems to, all cultures seem to embrace a form of that. What about that stuff over there, you know, Israel and Palestine? It doesn't matter, you know. There are Democrats and Republicans agreeing that that's okay. These are white folks, for real. I don't see it that way. I see principle matters. I don't even consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. I don't consider myself political. I believe that until black people are totally equal in this nation without any kind of issues going on, the political parties are just using us for our vote. You know, come on, you know, I'm trying to make it sound sweet or whatever, but no. Now I will vote for whatever what might suit me. I've voted Republican, I've voted Democrat, primarily Democrat, but I don't consider myself that. But if there's something, you know, important, I'll do. But both parties have stuff that I don't agree with. But you know, there are certain things that are more important because principle does matter. Okay. And that's another issue. People that just attach themselves to a party, hook, line, and sinker, no matter what they say, and they're going to believe it no matter what. I was talking to this one guy, I mean, white guy that I work with, Army, ex-Army. That's probably the problem. See, I was in the Air Force. We're a little bit more. I'm just kidding. But he was like, he's a Republican, you know. And see, I have a good time in this because even when when Hillary was running against Trump, and then Biden was running against Trump, and the Republican guys at work were trying to drag me into it. I'm like, I don't have a dog in this fight. These are just two wealthy white folks that want to be in power. So early on in both of those, I got myself out of it. I'm not in that, but I'm looking at this thing and I'm just going to tell the truth, whatever I see, whoever I see or whatever, okay? And that's where I stand on this. But as I spoke to my friend, that it's very important to me, what's going on there, with the Palestinians in Israel, especially as a black man, because I see those Palestinians as me. Now some folks say, in that area of Gaza, there's a lot of racism against the African, sub-Saharan type, black Africans and all. That's unfortunate, but still, that's their issue. This is still an issue, okay? And that needs to be corrected. And what I told her was that the Democratic President Biden should be worried, because a lot of people take issue with this. There are a lot of folks, first of all, that are leaning toward, are feeling empathy for the suffering Palestinians. And then, okay, that's aside. Then you take a lot of folks that have that blood in them. Somewhere in the Middle East, they have an empathy for the Palestinians. I'm just saying that if he's ever in a neck-and-neck race with somebody, these votes are going to mean something. And this is more important to me than, you talk about the abortion issue, or talk about Voting Rights Act, or talking about gerrymandering, or talking about some of the other stuff that they've, the gun laws and this and that. I'm saying this thing right here taking life, and it looks like the white transplants from Europe are more important than these lives of people that they've displaced. And there's a whole lot more behind it than what I've shared, but they've treated those people terribly. And then they want to focus on what happened in October 7th, I think, when they came over and took some hostages and killed a lot of Israelis. Well, I was thinking, and I was telling a friend that imagine when you really consider the suffering that those Palestinians have been going through in an apartheid state. That some of them are living right next door, right close to, in the same neighborhood, in the same vicinity, and working in the same vicinity as these people who have done well, the descendants and the friends of these Europeans that have come there and displaced these folks. And so now folks just come there, like that German girl from that German Jewish girl that was terribly treated and killed during that incursion in October. She was at some kind of festival there. So she's dancing around at a festival, having fun, just flying in from another country, in the faces of these people who are being heinously treated in what's been described as an open-air prison for the past 70 years, generations and generations. As well, you have like American Christians, I want to walk the path that Jesus walked, I want to see the river that they, and all this stuff in the face of the people who are suffering. White folks are taking, and black folks, white Americans and Europeans are taking vacation there and flaunting their freedom in front of these people who are being oppressed. And then wondering why they came over and created these heinous acts against Israeli citizens. And to me, it's amazing that they're oblivious as to why. Okay, it's sort of like, I don't even know if I can say this. Again, I'm a veteran, but it's like anything that happens. Maybe I shouldn't say 9/11. Terrible and heinous as it was, but this has been happening to people in that region forever, all of their lives, often at the hands of our CIA and our government, and even not even as covert as our CIA. Simply the European handprint. So to me, I mean, I despise violence, but come on. If you want to find a way to fix the situation, you have to understand the way your enemy thinks. That's why we lost in Vietnam. Like I had two brothers and a dad in Vietnam. Sister, Desert Storm, me and another brother. Fortunately, we were in peacetime. But the reality is, the reason we lost in Vietnam, first of all, we were on the wrong side. I don't know if that's the reason. But the reason is, we didn't understand the enemy. You got to understand your enemy. You got to understand why. And I think that if we are principled and we really begin to understand why, we might back off of what you're doing. Look, the other day, a couple months ago, I was cutting grass. This is really abstract. I have a big old lawn, okay? It's like cardio, you know, when I do my lawn, okay? So I got this tree, it's sort of the side kind of toward the back of my house, and I'm just cutting, just like normal, cutting, because it's going to be a 2-hour job. And I walk it. I have a riding lawnmower, but I haven't used that in years. So I'm walking it, and I got my AirPods playing, and I got shorts on, little short tennis shoes, my socks pulled down. I'm really comfortable, you know. And because I've done this for I've been here 15 years, just cutting this grass. And I'm cutting, all of a sudden I feel something sting me. And I know the sting from being a mailman for years. It was a bee. And I'm kind of allergic to bee stings, but I just kind of knocked it off. Maybe I'll be all right. You know? Just kept on going. It was just one, right? Kept on going, and not realizing it's just a bee sting. I don't know where that came from. So I'm going down, coming back about a minute later. I got 3 bee stings. I looked at my sock. There were these 3 yellow jackets stuck to my sock. Were stinging my leg. I thought, oh shoot, man. Finally, I just got them off, and I know I'm allergic to bee stings. I'm in trouble now. So I wasn't mad at the bees, you know. I don't know how that happened. 3 of them. So I went in the house and got ice on there. I had some Benadryl. Took some Benadryl because I knew what was coming. It was already starting to swell up, and then I just fell asleep. Woke up about an hour and a half, 2 hours later. All the swelling was gone. I was fine. I just put on these pants, as a matter of fact, long skinny leg pants. I put some combat boots on and tucked my shirt in, you know, and I gotta cut that grass. Then I'm going back over, and all of a sudden I see about 1 million bees flying in and out of this hole. It was a nest that I had rolled right over, okay? And I think they cut me a break the first time. The next time I came, 1 stung me. Next time I came, 3 stung me, and shoot, I don't know how I saw them. I was just looking I wasn't looking at the ground. I was kind of looking in the air, not even looking for them. Then I saw these things flying up and down out of this hole. I realized that I had been mowing over a yellow jacket nest, and that's what got me. Now, can I blame the yellow jackets? I mean, if I think about it, you know, they were just responding to the threat. Now to me, I said, well, it's my yard, you know, but it's their home. And so what I did was, I just left that patch and started over here, okay? But the point was, I was attacked and it was terrible. So did I kill the yellow jackets? You better believe it. Called up an exterminator. They came out there and handled that. But the reality is, from the yellow jacket's perspective, okay? And so we need to I was never mad at the yellow jackets. I just didn't realize the first time nothing happened. Second time 1 sting. Second time 3 stings. Then I came back out and I realized, oh, this was their home I was rolling over, okay? I don't know how many of them I killed, or if I killed some, probably. But the reality is, now I understood my opponent. And I understood that it lived there. And so I cut around it. Now, they didn't die for about the next maybe 3 weeks or so when I had somebody come out there. But what was interesting is they treated that area. And then as I'm cutting the grass about 2 weeks later after they were gone, I see them on the other side of my yard in another area flying up and down where they had just moved. So guess what I did? I just didn't cut that area. Now it's, you know, get fall and they seem to be gone, and I was just cutting it yesterday. I'm cool now. I was looking though. But the point is understanding that when you're attacked by someone you can easily decimate, you know, what's going on? Are they attacking you, trying to destroy you? Or are they attacking you, trying to send you a message? Okay? And I'm saying as it relates to us. So anyway, I was talking to that army guy. Let's get back to him. And he was like, we were talking about Republicans. The whole point I was trying to make with all this rabbit hole I went down was that I'm not political, because I don't have a dog in this fight. These are like, white folks battling it out. Even what we see right now in politics, it's not about black folks. I know we got Tim Scott in there and a couple brothers, Hakeem, a lot of people on the Democratic side. But the real battle going on, first of all, is between the Republican Party and even aside from that, even though black folks are being used, it's the institution that white people have set up. And so to prove it, when we look at that stuff that happened on January 6th, if instead of attacking the Capitol like it was attacked, suppose that all these people attacked a meeting of the Black Caucus, okay? We wouldn't even still be talking about it, okay? It would have been a terrible thing. Would have been on the news cycle for a couple of weeks, but then it would have gone on about their business and it wouldn't have been anything like this. Secondly, if it had been black people that had stormed the Capitol on January 6th, like those folks did, and there'd be a whole lot of dead black people on those Capitol steps, It's just a difference for black people. So recognize this, what's going on, even the politics, none of this stuff, it's not about us. That's what I said on the Army guy. He said, well, there are some guys that Republicans I just don't like, I'm like, who? I said, he said, like Mitt Romney. I said, Mitt Romney, he's a good guy. He's been around a long time. Yeah, but he's what they call a rhino. A Republican in name only, because he's not really, when he votes with the Democrats. I said, oh, come on. I said, okay, what vote are you talking about? Well, I can't remember, but, he just doesn't think the way. Sometimes he's just, I said, tell me one thing. He couldn't name it. Because it was just something, an idea that he bought into, and he believed it, and he's running with it. And then he's just saying he just sides with the Democrats too many times when they vote. And so we're talking, and I mean, he's a good guy, we get along. So then he said, and then we're kind of on another subject. He says, because I don't just vote Republican. There's some things like gay marriages and gay people. I'm fine with that. And he was naming off these certain Democratic ideologies that he's okay with. I said, so you're like Mitt Romney, huh? And then, I mean, come on now. I'm not in all that. And so I can look at the situation and be honest about the Republicans. I can be honest about the Democrat. Like this thing with Biden, man, I'm really, really disappointed, but I'm not surprised. Even one of my militant brother friends, at work, he's like I think an alpha or something, got the thing, a Q. I don't know what he is, but got it burned into his arm. And he's a brother, right? He was ragging on Biden, about his drug policies way back then. Got a lot of black people incarcerated or something or other. But I'm trying to give the guy a break, High enough still, are the same people we were 20 and 30 years ago. But then this stuff, comes up. I'm like, geez, man, I don't know. I was very disappointed, Because for me, you want to believe. As a black man in America, you want to believe that all white people aren't like that. But then on the other hand, you have to agree that after all these years after emancipation, there are still white people that are accepting benefit from being white. Okay? But then on the other hand, I have to say, well, if the situation was reversed, would I be accepting the benefit? Probably yes, too, so I can't hate him for that. But there was just, I think, a reality that black people have in this nation that we see. We know better. Okay, you can lie and justify all you want, but we know better. We've been in those kangaroo courts. We've been falsely accused. We've been imprisoned unjustly. We've been injected with syphilis when they were telling us, it was a vaccination. We've been poisoned, when they were told us this was the cure. So we know. We know the lies. And it's easier for us to see through. And the thing, as I shared in the last program, my daughter, she's at an HBCU now. And I love the HBCU. I've been up there about 4 or 5 times. And these young people, see, for us, the older black folks, successful in life, we knew how to navigate through the system and to still be well, to still be successful. But these young black educated kids now, my daughter called herself the other day, she called herself a scholar. Man, that's where they're at today, these HBCU, and there's so many of them, she's just at one. And and they don't see themselves, having to navigate through, white people and be a particular way to get here, to get there, and do this and do that. They don't see that. They came up seeing the first president she ever was aware of, cognizant in life, was Obama. She was 3 when he was president. When she became cognizant, she had never known anything but a black president. But she also got to see how white folks were treating him venomously. Then she got a little older and got to see Trump in office and got to see the responses of the white supremacists and a lot of the negativities and the responses to George Floyd and no, Black lives don't matter, Blue lives matter, Trayvon Martin, and all these things, and Breonna Taylor, all these things these kids, black kids were beginning to see, realizing that as they attach themselves to that education, that they don't have to navigate as we had to navigate. And so enlightened black parents, we have to teach our kids the truth about their history. They are already observing the truth about their present and get them on a path to recognize what their future is going to be. And there's going to be a powerful group of young black educated people that are going to be moving mountains. And so we just take the wisdom that we have, the wisdom that we've gained from the experiences that we've gained as parents over the years, and recognize and not capitulate simply because of our comfort. I mean, I have it going on. My life is good, but I can't rest while other folks are suffering. I just can't do it. I wasn't built that way. And so I'm suggesting to you today that you can be well. You can be 100% well, but it's also necessary to be a good example to our children. And here's the tough part, man. We are supermen. Black people are supermen, superwomen on this planet. I'll say we're kings and queens and all that. Yeah, but if you're not walking in it, what does it matter? So to me, I almost laugh when I hear, we're kings and we're queens. No, we're not. And the reality is, you go back the lineage back to Africa. There was one king, okay, one queen, and the lineages from them. But the masses, the majority of black people, were not kings and queens. Okay. Now, we had a civilization that far surpassed any of the European civilization. A lot of times they think, black people lived in, the jungle or crazy and all this stuff, and they were uncivilized and they were good thing they got here and all that. No, black people were way more civilized. The mathematics, the medicine, the study of the stars, man, these are black people. Africa. What you had these Europeans coming over, with strong arms and weapons. They weren't more sophisticated. They weren't civilized. It was the civilized people that didn't know how to respond properly and fight, so they lost. It's the civilized people that thought they could trade, thought they could get along with, welcomed into their neighborhoods, into their communities. So the power of the Europeans all over the world wasn't because of their intellect. It was simply because of their might. Recognize that. And black people, we don't realize that today. You have that. Now look, as an example, in every area of existence in life, you see the strength of black people. You saw it early on. Now just look at the slave trade. Look at what the heinous conditions black people had to live throughout slavery for hundreds of years. And then even after that, the persecutions and the Jim Crow and the Klans and the not hiring and the mistreatment, all the way even up to today. But black people have still survived. We've still been here. Man, any other group of people would have been exterminated, would have been genocided. They would have simply been a thought of something that once was. But black people survived because we are that strong, because we are that gifted. And not only that, in every aspect of life. Look, we already know in music, and that was one of the first things black people were able to do without really being challenged, even during the slavery times, black people, music. Even when you look at the fiddle, right? The fiddle from up in the mountains in Appalachia and all that, that fiddle is an African instrument. For real. So black people in music, man, up until today, nobody can surpass black people in music. Whatever we put our hand to do. Then business or sports. Come on now, sports. Basketball used to be a white sport, invented by a guy named Nesmith. Football was a white sport. Baseball was a white sport. Hockey, well, hockey still is. NASCAR, still is. But I'm saying when it comes to physical prowess and physical strength and physical abilities, black people have taken over every sport that they choose to put their hand to. So that's music and that's sports. Then we have business. Black business owners, they've blown it up. Any opportunity black people have put their hand to do, they've blown up those businesses. And they have small businesses. We have small businesses everywhere. Entrepreneurs. My wife is one of them. Many of them. Big business. We've blown up businesses. Politics. We've blown up all the way to the military. Let's do politics. Let's do the military as well. Benjamin Davis, Jr., Sr., Chappie James, all kinds of black soldiers and generals, the Red Tails, and so many other successful military people that our history books don't even talk about, simply because they didn't have to. The only reason we know about the Red Tails is because it became public knowledge and had to be introduced to our societies, but there were many others. And then the politics. We've been in every area of politics, of congressmen and governors and senators and all that. All the way up to the presidency of the United States, Obama. Come on, man. He dwarfed anybody that he debated with, whether it was in the Democratic primaries or the Republican general elections. Nobody. This is the strength of black people. This is who we are. No matter what we put our hand to. The problem is we've been convinced that we aren't. We've settled for less. We have drug issues. We have alcohol issues. We have crime issues. We have family issues, domestic violence issues, creating baby issues, a lot of immorality issues. The white folks, they have the same thing, but we're talking about black people. We're talking about the strength of this nation. We're talking about the original man. We're talking about the original civilizations on this planet. We are the origins of all of that. And the less than position that we find ourselves today in our societies, we have allowed this to happen. White folks may have been the catalyst that created all this because of their heinous evil and all, but we are the ones that are keeping ourselves down. We have to stop. And now look, I could just be saying this. I could just be talking the talk. I could have had a silver spoon in my mouth. I was talking to a brother of mine, and he said, well, you're just not suffering like these other black. I'm like, you don't know my life? Inward? You don't know my life? Man, I was out there. Most of us put ourselves out there. I was in that. I was in that thing. I was buzzed 24/7. I was always working good jobs, so I was blowing my money in clubs every night. I was self-destructive. I was destroying myself. But when I was 28 years old, I had this epiphany, I had this revelation that this is it. I'm no longer that person. We have to come to a place in our lives to recognize. Now, I was hanging out with folks. I had my best friends. I had people. But I just determined that was it, man. I was living at Woodman Park Apartments over on Woodman Drive in Dayton, Ohio. And I got up that morning when I had made that decision. I went to my apartment. I've been picking out everything in my apartment that I loved. I had stuff I had picked up in Korea, a real cool chess set. I had pictures of things from Japan. I had a jazz album collection. I had a switchblade collection. I had plants. I was growing my own, everything. All kinds of stuff. I gathered trophies, baseball, bowling, karate trophies I had earned throughout my life. I gathered everything up and took it all to the dumpster and threw all that stuff away. Because at that moment I realized all these possessions that I had, I felt like they had defined me. This is who I am. These things represent who I am. Many of the things in your life you think represent you, they don't. They don't represent you. You've allowed them to define you. And those are the things that you're not. And many of the things that we have allowed to define ourselves are destructive things. We need to stop. And I stopped. No more buzz. No more alcohol. Clubs every night of the week. None of that. All the stuff that I would see every day when I come home to my apartment that defined me, it was no longer there. There was an echo in my house. Changed my environment. Rather than allowing my environment to define me, I determined to define my environment. The things I filled my place up with were things that were positive, that began to define me. And I was 28 then. I'll be 65 tomorrow, November 2023. And this is who I've been. I know I left some of my people out there, some of my friends out there, many of them. I was just no longer me. I remember one of my family members, and I won't mention who, heard through the grapevine, said, oh, we'll let Marty, give him a couple months, he'll be back to normal. No, I was 28 then, I'll be 65 tomorrow. We have to come to that place. I've raised kids. My son graduated from the University of Cincinnati. He's very successful right now in another state. My daughter's in college right now. HBCU, calls herself a scholar. The other day, man, she posted something. She was in her neighborhood, in her university neighborhood on Saturday morning, making beds for kids that didn't have beds. And cleaning up the neighborhood, something else, man. But you know what? Those two kids of mine, they never knew Marty. They know Dad, who is Martin, but they never knew that other guy. So all the influences in their lives, something positive. It's not a guy that got that buzz, not a guy that drank every night, not a guy that was in the clubs every night, not a guy that was running around with women. They don't know that guy. They know a guy that was home every night. They know a guy that at 50, when Obama became president, decided to go to college to get an associate degree in 10 years. Then a couple of years later, earned a bachelor's degree. A couple of years later, total of 10 years, earned an MBA. They saw that. That's what they saw as an example. Wasn't getting high. Wasn't destructive. And that's the environment they bought into. Taught the kids about the black experience from the time they were cognizant of life. And who they are today is a direct result of that. I'm telling you, if we all would do that. But, I was telling a buddy of mine, what we have to do is we've got to stop getting that buzz. No more weed. No more alcohol. Don't break any laws. Get healthy, eat right, and exercise. And get armed. You do these things, you'll take yourself and your kids out of the reach of racism. I told my daughter that about a month before she left. I told her that me and her mother had taken her out of the reach of racism. She looked at me like I was crazy. No, you can. You can success yourself right out of the clutch of racism by making more money than the rest of them, by having more education than the rest of them, by living in better neighborhoods than the rest of them, by being more healthy than the rest of them. I mean, come on. So you have racist institutions. Now, I don't care if somebody doesn't like me. I don't care if you want to call that racist. That's not racist. That's just prejudice. Racist comes with power. Comes with the ability to affect the people, okay? So if you're a guy that just doesn't like black people, I guarantee you black people don't like you more than you don't like black people. So it doesn't matter to me if a white person doesn't like me. That's just a prejudiced person. That's an uninformed, unenlightened person who I'm probably more educated than. Does he have an MBA? Probably not. So that doesn't bother me. What affects me are racist institutions which do exist. The prison system is a racist institution. The justice system is a racist institution. The neighborhoods, that's a racist institution. The schools, as they were controlling affirmative action, that's a racist institution. Now that there's no affirmative action, no longer a racist institution. Let them do what they want. We got HBCUs everywhere. Take yourself out of the reach of racism. You're making enough money, you're out of their reach. You live in the nicer neighborhoods, you're out of their reach. You have out-educated them, you're out of their reach. I mean, I wasn't thinking this when I was going to school, but having an MBA, man, I'm in the top, fraction of a percent of education in the United States. Smarter than they are. If a dumb person dumber than you calls you a name, is that really going to bother you? Come on, you're not breaking any laws, man. When I was younger, I used to have driving issues. Man, I would always be at the verge of losing my license. I don't even know if they have the point system anymore. My record is totally clean. Out of the reach of the justice system. I don't break laws necessarily. I use cruise control all the time just so I don't daydream and end up speeding. I used to get tickets like that. I'd just be driving down the highway, all of a sudden I look in my rearview mirror and I'm lit up behind me. There's the cops because I was speeding. I wasn't trying to. Now I just use cruise control. Take yourself out of their reach. Get yourself armed just in case something goes down. I've had situations that I was armed and I was able to handle my own situation. Handle your situation. Take care of your business. Take yourself out of the reach. You can become a Superman. It might take sacrifice. Look, it took me 10 years to get that associate degree, bachelor's degree, and MBA. It was a sacrifice. Man, my sleep cycle still, I don't think it's correct. And that was like, shoot, 5 years ago. But when I look back, it was worth it. It was worth it, man. We can create, and now look at my kids. Man, when I started going to Sinclair, when I thought I was just going to get an associate degree, my daughter was 3. So all of her life, from 3 to 13, when I earned my MBA, all she saw me every day was studying. I remember she used to come, I had this one room, now it's my plant room, but my study room, I'd be working algebra, I'd be working on math problems. I'd have piles of balled up paper. Every time I get done with one, I just throw it over there. This is what she saw. She understands. That wasn't Marty. That's Martin.